I'm Anthony Thomson. I am the founder and former chairman of Metro Bank, first new bank in the UK for over 100 years. And I am the founder and chairman of Atom Bank, the first digital bank in the UK ever. I'm delighted to say that on today's programme with Doug Barron, I shall be talking about some of my experiences that I think have helped me build two banks, chair a national charity, build some great relationships with some great team members, and hopefully do some great things for some customers. Stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Barron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Barron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Barron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Barron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us today on this episode of Dov Barron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series, where today we're going to look at how my guest took probably one of the most stoic industries and turned it on its ear, completely disrupted it, and what you can learn from him about doing something very similar in your own industry. If you're a new listener, new viewer to the show, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in, we're about to go full Monty. If you're a regular, big thank you to you for joining us and for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners. With over 2 million downloads and plays, we're honored to be and grateful to be cited by Inc. as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. Listen, there are over 1 million podcasts out there, and thousands of them are focused on business and leadership. But there's only one show that is focused on what's at the heart and soul of business and leadership. And you're tuned into it right now with me, your host, Dov Barron. So thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. And remember, we always need your help in staying relevant. So please get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. As a leader, whether you are a CEO, someone from the C-suite, a sales leader, an entrepreneur, a leader in any capacity, you know that business is in disruption like never before. But the question is, can you get out in front of that disruption? Moreover, I put it to you that until you're willing to look at how to disrupt your own industry, you'll likely always be under threat. Our guest today is Anthony Thomson. On the surface, he's a banker, but what he really is a major disruptor. Part of Anthony's very impressive resume is that he's the founder and chairman of Atom Bank, chairman of Financial Services Forum, chairman of National Skills Academy for Financial Services, and NED, a company providing banking software as a service. Atom was granted its banking license in June 2015. It launched in March 2016 as the first real alternative to high street banks. It is the first full-service retail business bank delivered via, wait for it, yes, an app. Atom Bank was voted number 4 in the Challenger Project list of top 10 global innovation brands. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Anthony Thomson.
Hey, Doug.
Good to have you, my friend.
It's fantastic to be on your podcast. Thank you so much for inviting me.
My absolute pleasure, and we're honored to have you here. And for those, of course, our audience don't know that you and I met. We were just speaking about this before we went on. Before we went live, we met in Iran, where we were speaking together in February of this year, and that was pretty cool. It was wonderful to see you speak, and it was an honor to be able to share the stage with you. And of course, you spoke about Atom Bank. Now, in the opening, I spoke about disruption. And that the world of banking has hasn't gone through any major changes in hundreds, possibly even thousands of years. You had your biblical bankers, you had your finances of war and politics like the Medicis, all the way through to the Bank of England. Banking was determined by bankers. What gave you the cojones and the fuel to turn the banking industry on its ear?
Well, as you know, this is my second attempt to do it. I've started 2 banks in the UK now. I'm not sure I'll ever be starting a third one. But it's down to, actually, you make a good point about innovation, really. There are 2 types of innovation. There's momentum innovation,
Yes.
which is where you take what you do and you make it just a little bit better each time, incremental improvement. And then there's disruptive innovation, which is where you try to change a category.
Yes.
The way Uber has changed cabs, the way Airbnb's changed accommodation.
Of course.
And that was the approach we took. It was to try and really disrupt the banking model and say, hey, why should you have to walk out or drive out to go to a bank? We want to bring the bank to you. We want the bank to be in your pocket, around your neck, wherever you are. We want to be never more than an atom away from you. And that's Atom Bank.
But what made, I mean, what made you go after banking? Because, as I said, it's so stoic. I mean, it's like, we know you and I both work in the corporate world, and big companies talk about, trying to turn the ocean liner on a dime, and how that seems so difficult. You didn't take a corporation, you took an industry and turned it on a dime. Now, certainly it's where I had to go, but why?
Somebody told me ages ago, if you want to attack a category, choose a category where the original founders of the business are no longer there. When the category is run by managers, people who've been doing it just for a salary, often way too big a salary. And banking is just that category. It's no longer run by entrepreneurs. It's no longer run by people who are passionate about customers. It's run by business managers. When we went in there, we've got a fantastic team of people at Adam who are really passionate about putting the customer first. It was like knocking at an open door.
Wow, because it seems the opposite, right? I mean, for those of us on the other, like that is a big load to push over. Like those guys are like, no, this is, I mean, because, I go into companies and one of the things that I hear constantly is, well, this is how we do things around here. And I'm constantly banging on that door going, well, if you know what to do, then that's a recipe for failure in what to do in the future. This, as I said, this is a category, this is an industry. The financial services, not just banking, but the whole thing is very rigid. So
sure. Well, I'm a marketer by background, as you know, but perhaps your viewers won't know.
Right.
30 years in marketing. And as a marketer, what I tend to do is look at market data for an insight that will drive an opportunity. And back in 2007, when I had the idea for a bank in the UK called Metro Bank, the insight was what customers wanted was value. They wanted service, they wanted convenience, they wanted transparency. They wanted a bank that treated them well and didn't treat new customers better than them. And that was the insight that drove Metro Bank. Metro has been incredibly successful in the UK. Move forward to 2012. All the market data was telling me that there was going to be a seismic shift in consumer behavior in banking, from traditional banking to digital in general and to mobile in particular. And that was what underpinned the idea of Atom Bank, and that's what's led to its fantastic success in the last 18 months.
No, it's interesting because, you've done it in 2 ways. You got Atom Bank, which of course is the app, but you also, as you mentioned, you had, Metro Bank. And I think you said that from stage, I think I heard you say that was the first new banking license in 150 years. Is that right? I mean,
that's right. In the UK.
I mean, that's what I'm saying about pushing over an industry. It's like, come on, now, this is, I mean, I'll tell you, you and I talked about this in February when we met, that, we're both originally from the North, we're both, and people who are not from the UK don't really understand. The class war is still very much alive. And I know that when I was in London, not last May, the May before, and I was sitting with these people I've been introduced to in London, very high-level individuals, and I noticed a massive psychological shift when they realized I was not Canadian. Yeah. When they suddenly got, I didn't hide it, and I said, oh yeah, I was born in the North, I was born in Manchester, and suddenly there was that cutoff.
Yeah, there used to be a comedy sketch on TV which asked the question, is this person Canadian or are they dead?
Okay, that's fair enough. So so that system that's in place, particularly in the UK, is not just at class, but it's also at industry. So as a marketer coming in to the world of banking, again, you've got A, you're a northerner, B, you're not from the banking world. In the first category, the people who run in the banking world are all Southerners. We run this. We've always had money. It's family money for generations. And you want to come down here from up north, about as far up north as you can get in the UK, as in England, and tell us what to do. I mean, this is what I loved about your story, Anthony. That's why I wanted to have you on the show, because I want people to grasp that thing that seems so big is possible to push over.
It's like the old joke about, how do you eat an elephant? And you eat it one burger at a time. And I've always believed in business that whatever you want to undertake, however complex and complicated it seems, you can break it down into its constituent parts. Mm-hmm. When thinking about opening the first bank, as you say, the first bank for over 100 years, and then with Atom, the first digital bank. Sorry, I've just lost you. Just come back. I broke it down to really 5 questions. So question 1 is, how do you raise the money? Question 2 is, how do you build out the technology? Question 3 is, how do you get a license? Question 4 is, how do you get the people to come and work with you? And question 5 is, how do you get your customers? Wow. So there's only 5 bits to starting a bank. Now, obviously, underneath each of those 5, there's another 50, and underneath each 50, another 50. Of course. But you just say, all I've got to do are those 5 things and I can build a bank. And we've done it twice.
That's amazing. Because, again, I just love the fact that you went up against the resistance. I love the fact that you went up against the stoicism. And we know, we've been doing this show for almost 10 years now. And, we've been talking about disruption for as long as that. But I really believe, as I said at the beginning, that this is the most disruptive it's ever been. But at the same time, whenever you get major disruption, you also get major stoicism. People want to hold on to the old, to the familiar, and they're not willing to let it go. And that grip gets tighter. As David Icke says, the way you know that they're losing is because they hold on tighter.
Yeah, that's played to our advantage. So as the markets change and we've been dynamic and flexible and agile, they, as you say, they just cling on more and more and more to what they do. So it gives us a real opportunity. And it also depends where you start. I mean, a lot of these guys are bankers and they are concerned about making money.
Right.
And my view is, and I believe passionately, that profit is a byproduct of doing something well for the customer.
Yes.
If you give the customer a better product or a better service or a better experience, and you manage your business well, you'll make money. And of course, we need to make money. Our shareholders need to be rewarded for the risks they take. All the people who work in the bank need to be paid, and they need to have career progression. But it's a byproduct of giving the customer something. And that's what differentiates us from the other banks.
Well, that was the interesting thing. That was the interesting thing you said about it, when I saw you speak, was that you approached opening the bank very differently than a normal bank, in that it had the feel of a retail. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that was with Metro Bank, which has physical locations. Because back in 2007, when we had the idea, that's how people banked. But what banks used to be very foreboding. They gave this kind of parent-child attitude when you went into them. And we said, no, let's make this a really great customer experience. We put in coin counting machines that played games for the kids. We welcomed dogs. We were the first bank in the UK that said, hey, bring your dog in. And people went, what?
A bank? A dog?
A bank? You bring your dog in. And do you know what? The reason banks don't want people to bring their dogs in is because the dogs pee on the floor or worse. And that's what happened in Metro Bank. Some dogs pee on the floor or worse. But you know what? If we don't mind your dog peeing on our floor, in fact, we'll even give them a dog biscuit, maybe it proves we care more about you as a customer than we care about us as a bank.
Now, I just want to hone in on that for a minute, because that for me is like, that's beautiful. That piece there, for me, that's a brilliant marketing mind, as opposed to a banker. That you actually go to, how can we make these people feel more like that we genuinely care? Because every bank in the world says we care. We're about our customer. I mean, this bullshit bylines of all the companies that say we care most about our customer, we're innovative. I mean, these are all nonsense. They're just the lines that are thrown around because it's trendy. But to actually think, what would prove that? We're gonna let you bring your dog in. Like, how did you get to that? I want to know about that. That's a very interesting thing to me.
I have to say that was not my idea. That was my co-founder's idea.
Cool.
He loved it, and it worked incredibly well. But it was just one of many, many things that we did. We put toilets in each branch, which in the UK is unheard of.
Yes.
And said you don't even have to be a customer to use them.
Oh my goodness.
And then we put baby changing facilities in, and it was just about really saying, if you're a customer, what do you want? What do you need? And how can we help provide that? Even if we don't make any money out of it, it's about putting the customer first. If we give you a better product, a better service, a better experience, we'll eventually make money. And guess what? It's as profitable as any other bank, but our customers love us.
Well, I read in your bio that you, in March of 2016, Metro Bank was floated on the London Stock Exchange and valued at £1.6 billion. Pounds, not dollars, pounds.
Yeah, real money, not even dollars.
Not even monopoly money, right? I mean, all that for a few baby changers, coin machines, and some dogs allowed, which on the other side would probably be argued that that's going to cost too much. I mean, you talked about the coin machines and the cost of those, and the argument against them. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's a really great point.
Every branch of Metro has at least one and usually two coin counting machines. And in other UK banks, if you've got coins and you want to pay them in, they charge you for the privilege of taking your money. We said, no, that's not fair. So we put these coin counting machines in. They're free to use. If you're a kid, you can play a game. You pre-count, you put your money in, and if you guess within 10% and you're a kid, you get a prize. So guess what? The kids pre-count the coins, put them in, they win a prize. I think that's great.
Yeah.
And the machines are free to use. And they cost, I don't know, about $20,000 a machine. There's no return on investment. As I say, 2 in each store. So that's $40,000. It's going on 50 stores now. That's $2 million spent on coin counting machines with no payback. But guess what? The customers love it. It improves the customer experience. Customers tell their friends. You get more customer advocacy. You get more customers.
Yeah, again, this is, for me, it's a central philosophy in the work that we do in talking to companies, leaders, and saying, you've got to look beyond direct ROI. The old, I'll spend $1 on a piece of fabric, I'll buy it, I'll cut it in two, and I can sell it for $1 each. And that's old thinking. And I love that what you've done is gone, no, hold on a second. What is the ripple effect? So $2 million on coin machines, there's no ROI. But what is the ROI in loyalty? What is the ROI?
You've always got to look at the big picture.
Yeah.
What are you trying to do? It's not just about nickel and diming people.
And that in and of itself to me is so innovative, even without the technology, but innovative particularly in the world of banking, which is all about nickel and diming, or has seemed to be that way up until very recently. How is the banking industry dealing with you? I mean, because you and I met speaking, and I know that you speak a lot. You're a very busy speaker, more than you're a banker now. Every time I get in touch with you.
No, not quite. Not quite.
You must be getting there, because every time I talk to you, you're on the road somewhere. How does the world of banking deal with you now? Do you speak to bankers?
Yeah, I mean, I have many friends who work in banks, but the reality is the banks have got an awful lot of bigger problems to worry about than me. They've got archaic IT systems, they've got legacy balance sheet problems, they've got thousands of branches in places nobody goes to anymore. They've got bigger problems to worry about than me.
But do you speak at like banking conferences or anything like that? Because there's
I try not to because they're incredibly boring.
really, yeah, I can see what you mean. So like I said, we met speaking in Iran. How much of your focus now is on speaking?
Oh, it's a very small amount. I mean, I spoke in Iran, much like you, because the conference organizer is a great guy, and I was very happy to support him. Um, Probably like you, I could speak every day of the week somewhere,
Sure.
but yeah, I've got other more important things to do, like building a bank, like chairing the charity that I do, like helping some of the work that we do to mentor young people.
Yeah. So let's go into that because you're the co-founder of Money Spinners,
Yeah,
which is an annual charity cycle run for
yeah.
financial services executives. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, we started it 10 years ago as a means of getting some of the rich fat cat bankers off their backsides and onto a bike to raise some money for charity. And it worked incredibly well over the years. We've raised probably approaching $500,000 for various really good causes, and it's a good few days out for us. We celebrate at the end with a glass of wine or two, but it's great. I mean, it's all part of. Yeah, I think in life, it's not just about the work that you do; it's about what contribution you can make to society. And we're looking at Atom all the time to say, what is our social purpose and how can we add value to the communities in which we operate? And we're looking very closely at how we can do that. You might know that I recently teamed up with Will I Am,
Yes.
invited him to become a advisor to the board of Atom. He has a fantastic charitable foundation called I Am Angel, which helps deprived kids in deprived areas get college educations. So we're looking at how we can work with him to take that work, bring that work into the UK.
That's amazing. Again, not thinking like a banker, right? I mean,
Yeah.
will
Well,
I am? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I've been in banking for 10 years and I keep saying I'm not a banker.
No.
And people keep saying to me, how long can you keep saying that? And I'm going, as long as I can. I'll keep saying it as long as I
With
can.
my last breath. Because of our original meeting, my work is finding and operating from a place of sole purpose. And for me, the soul of leadership is the people and that commitment to self-discovery, what drives them at that deeper conscious and unconscious level to reconcile the disenfranchised, compartmentalized parts of themselves. For some of the leaders that I work with, some of the leaders that I coach and mentor, people who I actually have a ton of respect for, they feel that the soul of leadership is influence. From your point of view, do you see as at the very soul of leadership and, for that matter, business? What is it that is at the core?
It's about vision and values. And when I put the team together, the fantastic management team that now run Atom Bank, the chief exec, the CFO, CIO, and so forth. When I first sat down with them to talk about the idea, we spent literally months not talking about the business model, but talking about what was important to us.
Right.
What did we share vision? Did we share values? What drove us? And it was, for me, very important to find people with a shared sense of vision and purpose. So I think if you bring together people with a shared vision, values, purpose, you become incredibly powerful. And I've always said, of the choice between a brilliant strategy and a mediocre team, or a brilliant team and a mediocre strategy, give me the best team every day of the week, and we'll deliver something brilliant.
Do you think, or do you see that companies embrace purpose enough, or do you still see them as seeing that as kind of an add-on later for most
Way
companies?
way too many just pay lip service to it.
Yeah.
And it's back to this point about your paid managers of big businesses, that it's just something they see on the balanced scorecard as, have we a corporate social responsibility program? Yes, tick.
Yeah.
We
Check
live
the
and
box.
breathe it.
Yeah.
It is part of, it's the fabric of our DNA.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me how many companies, I mean, you and I both know this, go into companies and who are on paper very successful, and meeting the founder or the chairman or the CEO or whoever it is, and realizing the lack of oomph in there. They're just like, yeah, we celebrate twice a year, we have the GM meeting, but there's no real fulfillment apart from the glass of champagne that we hit the targets. And it's like,
Yeah.
And it's fascinating because, you and I sat with your son, Felix, who's a wonderful young man, and I really enjoyed meeting him, terrific guy. And I was, as you know, I was speaking a lot about millennials when we spoke. And understanding, I mean, this is what's cool about what you're doing, is understanding that you can't serve today's customer the way you could serve yesterday's customer. You can't serve today's team, if you're a leader, the way you served yesterday's team. And that if you don't have that purpose, whatever it is, and I'm not making it right or wrong, but whatever it is, if you can't articulate that and not just say the right frickin' words because of some bullshit on the wall mission statement, but actually something you're passionate about, that you feel driven towards, you're not going to endear people. You're not going to create that loyalty in your team or in your customers. And that social responsibility piece, which I love that you guys have taken on, is you guys have taken it on, it seems, again, I don't know, but it seems like you've taken it on at a deeper level than most companies that are certainly valued at 1.5 billion.
Yeah, I think we question all the time, what is our purpose? Are we living our purpose?
Yeah.
Every time anybody joins Atom, we started with 6 of us. There's about 300 of us now.
Awesome.
Each time we bring in new people, little team, six at a time, I sit down with them and I go, do you believe in what we're doing?
Yeah.
Because if you don't believe in what you're doing, you shouldn't be here. Because
amazing.
It's not good for you and it's not good for us.
Yeah.
And, our HR team might not thank me for saying this, but if you don't believe in Atom, go and get a job somewhere else doing something you believe in. Because
Absolutely.
It won't be good for you, it won't be good for us. And also, we'll find out. And when we find out, we'll part company.
Yeah.
So let's address this straight up. Because if we are combined in our belief, we can move mountains.
Yeah, it's like Tony Hsieh paying his people $5,000 to leave. And people are like, are you
That was
crazy?
brilliant. I just wish I could afford to do that.
Isn't that brilliant?
Or I wish maybe I had the courage to do that. I think it was a fantastic thing to do.
Absolutely. And I think they've actually upped that rate now to get rid of you because they understand the value of keeping the right people involved in the company. So powerful, so amazing. I just love that.
Fantastic. I agree.
One of the things that is important for leaders, and again, I see this as a challenge for many leaders, because we get to the position, we are the CEO, we are the chairman, we are the president, we are the whatever it is that is at the top. And it's easy to feel like I'm there. It's easy to feel like I've made it. And I also feel like when you get to that place, I know this from the people I've worked with, it can sometimes feel challenging to admit that I have a challenge. I've got something that's difficult for me. And it's one of the reasons I like peer groups, and it's one of the reasons that we do well and that people want to work with us, and because we go in and work with these very high-level individuals. But one of the things I want to encourage them to do is to admit, because you can't get past a problem without admitting that there is one to find a solution. What is a challenge or a problem that you're currently working on in your own business so that they can see somebody like you who's so successful is willing to go, you know what? Yeah, we're still working on stuff.
I think I would address that slightly differently in terms of saying, what drives me and what drives us.
Right.
Different people are driven by different things.
Absolutely.
Some people are desperately driven to be successful. I'm driven by the fear of failing. I'm absolutely terrified of failing. That's what makes me get up and go to work every day. And I'm often asked, by people, what is the secret of any success I might have had?
Mm-hmm.
Is it intelligence, insight, brilliance? Was born with lots of money? What was it? And I go, do you know, it's really simple. I get up every day and I go to work. And people go, well, that's not much of an insight. I go, well, let me tell you a story. When we were raising money for Metro Bank, it's very, very difficult. Nobody thought there was an opportunity for a new bank in the UK. We couldn't get any traction. We ended up raising all the money in America. And we had over a 3 or 4 week fundraising period, which is incredibly tough.
Yeah.
We got commitments to about $116 million. We were looking for $100 million. And for once, actually felt real. It's like, we've got the money, we can make this happen. I flew home on the Friday night. My little joke is I said to my wife, we've raised the money, and she went out to spend it. Then on the Monday morning, Lehman Brothers went bust.
Right.
And that week, we lost $65 million of funding. And within 3 weeks, we'd lost it all. And it would have been really easy to go, it's just too tough. But I just get up and I go to work. We have good days, we have bad days. We have good weeks, we have bad weeks. We have good months, we have bad months. And we've just got to keep going.
Yeah, I remember you telling that story from the stage, and I'm thinking, I wonder how many people, particularly in 2008, 2009, when everybody got hit so hard, I wonder how many people just felt like there was no other option than to buckle under. Just like, they took me out at the knees, and when you talked about it, I'll tell you, because, we're both Brits. So when you talked about it, and you talked about that it was gone, and I thought about that fantastic Holy Grail scene, which is, it's really a flesh wound. Come back, you cowardly bastards. He's cut his arms off, he's cut his legs off, he's on his knees squirting blood. But come back, you bastard, it's only a flesh wound. And that really, that was I by the way, I recommend that you get that clip for your presentation and just use that little bit, because at any point there, it would have been easy to roll over and say, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
We're done. I'm personally, again, it's my bias, but personally, I call that northern grit. It's something that I think that when you've come from a background that is somewhat oppressive, you either are oppressed or you're driven to constantly overcome oppression in whatever form
I'm not sure whether it's just a northern thing. I've met people from all over the world who've just overcome all sorts of oppression. Stuff that makes what you and I have done look positively meaningless.
Oh, absolutely.
People who've made incredible achievements and endeavors in charity and physicality and all sorts of things. So, but
it's that
we
grit.
Keep going.
It's that willingness.
We keep going.
Right? Yeah, it's fantastic. Now, to raise to the level of success and recognition that you have, what would you say? Because I find this in most of the leaders that I work with, that there is often unconscious until I ask the question, what is the central, most unshakable philosophy, philosophical even belief you have about life? What is it that central philosophy? Some people, it's like people are crap and they're always out for their own, and some people are people are genuinely good. There's a central philosophy. What do you think yours is?
I've got to be able to look myself in the mirror in the morning and feel good about what I've done. And, some people would call it a moral compass. Others call it, the way they live their lives. But for me, it's about, treating people the way I would want to be treated myself. And sometimes you go, I could maybe have done a better deal, but would I feel good about myself doing that? You talk about my son, Felix.
Yeah.
Would I feel good talking to Felix about what I've just done?
Yeah, because he's quite the moral compass. I just love him, right? He's a great kid. I mean, we're going to do a shout out to Felix on here because it's important. I mean, he's a great young man. He's doing amazing work. I know he's in the process of making a documentary right now about refugees in Eastern Europe. I mean, this is a young man. If you met him, you'd never know his dad is who his dad is. He has no pretense about him. Very natural, lovely man. But he also has that moral compass. And I heard him take jabs at you constantly, and you at him.
Yeah,
But it was that there was part of the thing I loved. I mean, one of the things that I get to do is working with multi-generational families is look at the father-son relationships, and often they're not as healthy as they should be. And watching that play between the two of you, who seem to be in very different camps around money and business, but in the same camp around making a difference and having impact, was very interesting for me to observe that based on who I am and what I do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm biased because I'm his dad, but I'm incredibly proud of what Felix has done and his work, as you just mentioned, with refugees in Serbia. Yeah. And I think while we have a different political outlook, he's slightly to the left of Karl Marx, and I'm probably slightly to the right of Hayek. We have a very open conversation, and it's always been, from when he was very small, a conversation between two people. And I'm pleased to say that I have a fantastic relationship with him. He has told me, and he may well have told you, that come the revolution, I'll be first up against the wall. But
yes. Yeah, I remember him saying that to you. Come the revolution, brother, you'll be first against the wall. That's funny stuff. I found that entrepreneurs, leaders, people at the top of their game are invariably obsessed. And what I mean by that is that there's something they can't resist. I've often said that if there's a scene in that movie that you talk about, it's about whatever you're obsessed about. If there's a TV show, you have to watch it because you're obsessed about it. If a book comes out and it's in the title, there's a conversation. What is your obsession?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I'm probably the wrong person to ask.
It's the thing you can't resist. It's the thing that you...
I'm obsessed by mechanical things.
Really?
I love the structure. I love cars. I love watches. I love vinyl. I love the way things work. I like to understand the mechanics of how things work.
That's very interesting. Because,
Gosh, I've never even thought of that myself. Wow,
No.
You're a good interlocutor.
I guess we lost your image again. There you go.
Yeah.
And that's...
after you, I'm good.
Yeah, and then that's interesting because, you talked about the 5 questions, which is part of your system for understanding the mechanics of how to build something. What are the 5 questions you start with? That mechanical process that for others would make it overwhelming. And I think it's a very important piece for all of us to understand. In the purpose work that we do, it's one of the questions we ask: what is your obsession? What is your central philosophy?
You asked a great question when we were together, which is, what is your life's purpose?
Yeah.
And it was interesting, coming back to Felix, he was really clear on that from the get-go, and it's a question I've been grappling with for some time, and I think it's about trying to leave the world a better place than when I entered it. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not a great articulation, but I'm just kind of working my way through that one. Yeah. It was a tough question you asked, Dov.
Well, I'm happy to help you with it whenever you're ready to walk into that one, because it is, I've always said, I've written a lot about loyalty, as you know, and about leadership. And I say, but there is a problem, there is a solution that solves all the problems, and that's purpose. Yeah. But the problem is that most people they come up with a vague purpose, but not a specific purpose that is subjective. And when you get that, that's when you get the emotional fuel that allows you to go through it. Here's what I want to know from you. Tell us what you see as the most practical thing you've shared today with our audience. What is the most practical thing for CEOs, somebody in the C-suite, or even a high-level entrepreneur that they can grasp and walk home with and go, you know what, I listened to Anthony today, and this is the thing I want to go home with?
Well, for me, it comes back to this, we have good days, we have bad days, good weeks, good months, bad months. It's just treat those 2 imposters the same. Just get up. If you believe in what you're doing, get up and keep doing it.
Yeah, it's an interesting piece because at many levels that is just simply your philosophy, isn't it? It's just get up, go to work. You know, I interviewed very recently Keith Perrin, who you may or may not know. He is the CEO of Fubu Radio. He was part of the original Fubu clothing collection with Damon John and those guys. And one of his pieces, his central philosophy was do your homework.
Yeah.
You know, he talked about not doing his homework at school, and he talks about do your homework. Whatever it is you're doing, do your homework. And he said, and if the problem is that when you get successful, it's easy to go, I don't need to do my homework. I already know this stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, and yours is, well, here I am, chairman of the bank at 1.5 billion value, and get up and go to work. It's a crappy day. Get up and go to work. You've got this high value stock. Get up and go to work. And it's that it's, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's more than a work ethic.
Yeah, but it's a life ethic. You know, things in life, you have good things and you have bad things happen to you. You just keep going. Life's what happens to you when you don't make a plan.
Right, as John Lennon
So I'm a great believer in planning. You know, hopefully where my life's going to go. You know, who knows? I could die tomorrow, but that wouldn't be a very good way to live my life. So we try and plan in terms of work. We try and plan in terms of social, in terms of contribution and other things that we do. You know, it may not be a great plan, but it's a lot better than no plan.
So you are, you know, you're well known. You get out there in the world, as we talked about before, and I'm sure in interviews you've been asked 1,000 questions, and many of them, of course, are going to be around Atom and Metro Bank and what you've done. And some of the questions may even be similar to what we talked about today. But a question what I want to ask you is, what's the one question you wish they would ask you that nobody does?
How come I'm mistaken for Brad Pitt so often?
So, did you say for bad pits?
No, for Brad Pitt.
No, I know what you said.
No, I don't know. What's the one thing?
Yeah, what's the question that no one asks you that you wish they would? It's like, you know, nobody ever bothers to ask me about that. Because as you know, everybody, when you make it, whatever the hell that means, people tend to focus on that. But they don't look at the other stuff. They don't look at the things you go, you know what? This is the stuff that you're missing that's actually the juicy stuff. What's the one question you wish people would ask?
I'm not sure how I would phrase it as a question, but I think one of the things which irritates me to a degree is people assume that it's all down to me. And I go, well, it's not. You know, I've got an ecosystem. I couldn't do any of this without my wife. It's not that my wife is involved in the business, but she helps, you know, she brought up the kids. She looks after the homes, looks after the dogs, as well as having her own interests. She's a painter. But without her, I couldn't have achieved any of these things.
Yeah, I think that is a very important point that so often is missed. But wife,
don't tell her.
Yeah, I'm phoning her in half an hour. But, you know, it's very interesting you say that, because very often my wife is in the background a lot. She co-facilitates with me. We are business partners, but she runs a lot of the business side of the logistics and stuff. And I always say I couldn't do it without her, but I also know that I couldn't do it without the people on my team. And you're right, this self-made man, self-made woman bullshit, and that's all it is, because nobody is, because we're all going to need somebody to cheer us on or somebody to help us with something. And I think that's
great it's great when you have a bad day or a bad week or a bad month to be able to go home to somebody and share that with them.
Yeah, somebody that's a soft place to land is, I think all of us so desperately need that. And often at the top of the game, people don't have that. They don't, because it becomes more and more and more isolating.
Speaking of which, I'm going to have to go soon to look after my lovely wife.
Yeah, well, we're coming right to the end now, so I want to just finish up with asking you. You get to put one thing on your gravestone? Short and sweet, what is it?
I so loved the one by the British comedian, which was, "I told you I was ill." But, I don't know. I guess I've got no option but to say, well, I'd like it to be something about, it wasn't all work. It was about my family, about my friends. That's an awful long thing to put on my gravestone. But, so many people go, so late in their life, they go, "I wish I hadn't spent so much time at work."
Right.
I really try to spend time with my family, and I'd like that to be reflected in some way.
Yeah, that's cool. So please, it's been great having you on the show. Please tell our listeners, our viewers, where they can find out more about you, about what it is you do, potentially bringing you in to speak if that's possible, or in any way that you or your services can be found out more about.
Well, that's kind of you to say. Offer the opportunity. We're at Atom Bank, which is atombank.co.uk. We always love to hear from people. We know that nobody has a monopoly on good ideas, so anybody who's got an idea how we can make our customers' lives better, we'd love to hear from them.
Fabulous. So atombank.co.uk. atombank.co.uk. We'll make sure that is posted when we put the show out. And I want to thank you for joining us today, and I hope to stay with us to the end. And I want to thank each of you, dear viewers, dear listeners, for tuning in, for being part of the show. And as always, I say to you, please don't just listen to the show. Listen, take notes, listen back, and do something with what it is you've learned today. And remember that the research consistently shows that one of the biggest challenges facing the most successful companies is somewhat counterintuitive. That the fastest growing companies often hit a point where they realize that they're spending a fortune on attracting, training, and developing their talent, only to have them leaving them at an alarming rate. If you're sick of investing in training and development for your talent, only to have them leave before you've got the return on your investment, then talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide the essential leadership skills to bring you back to your purpose and rekindle and amplify the hidden loyalty assets of your organization. With our assistance, you can reduce employee turnover by as much as 80% in as little as 120 days. fullmontyleadership.com, providing you with the concrete soft skills to get you and your organization to the top and keep you there, because you can't outsource authenticity. This is Dov Baron, fullmontyleadership.com, saying stay curious, my friend, stay curious about how you can be focused not just on the profit, but on the service. Until next time, this is Dov Baron, and I am out.